All right, it is time for the fourth installment of my read aloud of my novel, The Potion Dealers. This should be the second to last installment. As always, if you want to begin from the beginning, there's a link in the description to the playlist, and when I get to the end of the segment, I'll talk a little bit about some of the world building or other, there's a little extras at the end. But for now, let's get right into it. Chapter 28, Onward to Lioness. I feel like I should tell you that this part is a little flashback dream sequence in italics because it's such a disorienting way to begin a read aloud without telling you that. An empty vessel, just like Lord Calvin asked for. Your skill remains unparalleled. It's like there's nothing left of him at all, and yet, just thinking that somewhere deep down one of our enemies is trapped behind those eyes, it's just so delicious. The woman smiled. Behind the woman, Livonya saw those eyes, the deadened, glassy eyes of her own father. There was no fight in him now. His hair was cut short and he was dressed in plain, stark black, but she still recognized him clearly right down to the mouth that reminded her of her own. In the dream, he made her nervous. In the dream, he was her enemy. He was trapped, wasn't he? He would never wake. She was much weakened now after fighting him, but she had still won. No, he would never wake. Livonya woke in terror. Her hands were shaking. Her heart was thumping louder than the truck rumbling down the street below her window. What were these dreams? Was her father trying to send her a message? What if he hadn't died at all? But these visions brought her no comfort. She kept feeling as if she was the one holding him captive and there was no hope for him. The dreams gave her no clues of what to do next. The only consolation was that the sun was coming up. "Oh, bless you, son," she whispered as she heard footsteps in the kitchen. The dreams were coming more frequently and vividly since she came here, however. Almost every night, it was getting harder to shake them off. What was that fresh horror? In the dream, she remembered wearing trailing robes and that same hair in long dark braids, like the Halnari. Somehow she was seeing the Halnari telepath who was responsible for her father's death. She tried to ground herself in the apartment, the traffic noises, Alfred's archive, and his little desk with the telephone and typewriter. There was something about these modern things that made the dream feel less real. She reached for her robe of peach silk that tied with satin ribbons and buried her nose in the faint orange blossom scent of it before slipping it on and leaving the room. "Good morning, Ballora. You beat George to it. Once he wakes up, we'll pack up the bags, go see the founder of the Order of the Arcane Hand, and see if we can make a deal with him. Hopefully we can get flights out today." "Flights? Where are we going?" "Lioness." Lioness! Livonya caught her breath. To think she would now have seen 3 of the great cities in the world in mere weeks. Avalon was the holy city of the Miralem, but Lioness was the Miralem's biggest ocean port city, known for its theaters and music and the wealthiest old royal families and their palaces. "I've been to all these cities so many times," Alfred said. "Papa often brought me with him on business trips when I was young. I wouldn't say I take it for granted, but sometimes I forget what it's like for the world to be new and thrilling." "Is that a nice way of saying I sound like a wide-eyed innocent?" "It's an appreciative way of saying you sound like a wide-eyed innocent." He poured coffee. "Don't try to hide it. It makes me feel like a kid again. Except maybe better, because Papa didn't appreciate excitement." "Coffee or tea?" "Tea," she said. "Your parents are certainly a challenge." He sidled close to her, leaning against the kitchen counter, stirring his coffee. She watched his hands. She was well aware that he had just broken things off with Thessia. He told her yesterday, a little pained. Livonya did feel bad for Thessia, who seemed like a kind person. But some things couldn't be denied, couldn't be fought against, and that was how she felt about him. And sure, she wanted to feel those hands on her. 30 years was a long time not to even dabble in courtship. But she also felt like she would have been happy just to have coffee and tea and talk with him every morning forever and ever. "Your parents should have had a fair chance to be a challenge for me as well," he said. "I don't mind skipping that part at least. But your parents will probably hate me, won't they? I bet they'll think I had something to do with all of this. It turns out the real curse was you." He grinned. "I don't care. I've been waiting for an excuse my whole life. You've made me feel stupid. I could have paid Mr. Kerr a visit 10 years ago. And if it goes well, I could get a slate of suppliers. I was close to marrying a girl that I do think of like a little sister, much as I tried not to. And I've thought of myself as a rebel because I got my own apartment and I dabble in treasure hunting on the weekends. But I've done everything my parents ever really asked of me, like a good little heir. They might hate you, but what could we do together, Ballora? I want to find out, she said. He lifted his hand to brush her cheek. She leaned into it. They drew together, as natural as anything. She felt like they'd already been married for 100 years. It just felt like that. So right to kiss him in the kitchen, gently, not too deeply, definitely not. She hadn't brushed her teeth yet. But it was so nice, she felt so safe with him. She almost felt like she could tell him about her dream someday. At the same time, this seemed like a dream, like she would wake up and be back in Fernana. She wasn't thinking about the future, and if she did, it would surely get more complicated. The tea kettle whistled. He turned it off and poured her a cup of the spiced tea he knew she liked by now. Should I make breakfast? She asked. Yes, I'll wake up George. He kissed her forehead before drawing away. She had never been so happy in her life. This was the feeling she'd been waiting for. 4 hours later, they were on a flight to Lyoness. The world was tiny beneath them. She ordered a glass of wine. The two wealthy men behind them were having a conversation about how one of their factory employees was secretly putting vote for debt flyers everywhere, and how to best discipline them without increasing support for him. Although they were heading back to the Miralem lands, the majority of the flight were Darmons. The stewardess kept flirting with George every time she had to move her cart past his knees, so he was in an excellent mood. Turan Care founded the order, Alfred said, briefing them on the mission. He should know the name and status of every man in it. I would guess about half of the members are still alive, although if we take out another percentage that are getting very decrepit, and assume around a third of them have ever been in the business of making potions or magical artifacts, we might have around 100 potential new suppliers. That sounds good. Is it? It's excellent, Alfred said. We have just a little over 200 total suppliers now, and some of them are poor quality. What you really want is a supplier who delivers consistently, makes rare and desirable or high quality and high demand potions, and is loyal to the Brovder family. That last is important. If you bring in a new supplier who hasn't been working for any of the families, others will try to poach them. The Kamares are very good at this. They just offer more money, or do they use more underhanded means? Usually it's just more money. You don't really want to threaten your suppliers unless you have no choice. Your suppliers expect you to protect them, so you need to appeal to them in some other way. That's where I have to be delicate. Just because these guys were blinded in the war doesn't mean they'll be much more willing to work for me. They are old Daramons, after all. Some of them will make my parents look warm and fuzzy. That's why we try Mr. Care first. He's the founder of the group, and I know he's more aligned with my thinking. When I was a little kid, my Uncle Vika took me and George to see the film about his life. It was when I first heard of the order, and I used to pretend to be one of those sorcerers when George and I played. Of course, years later, when we read his memoirs, it was disappointing how much of that movie wasn't true at all. Man, it's even worse if you actually see the movie, George said. The actors that played him and his wife are like sexy snake people, and in real life they look like a train hobo and a dumpling. Sexy snake people? Livonya raised her brows. Yeah, you know. George started caressing Alfred's arm with cobra moves and moved to his face while Alfred started smacking him back. Tall, skinny, snake people caressing each other. I've got to demonstrate for Alfred. Alfred jabbed George with his cane, and George kept battling it off with snake moves. Snake beats wolf. Wolf beats snake. Livonya was used to this sort of thing by now and waited for them to run out of steam. So, do you have a strategy with Mr. Care? Yes. Alfred smoothed his tie. Show confidence, dump on Lord Jaron and the generals because he despises them, and flatter the shit out of him. Livonia's mind curdled as his words reminded her of the dream. Just like Lord Calvin asked for. Did that mean my father was kidnapped by the Peacock General himself? Of course, she had grown up knowing that Lord Jaron and the four generals were evil incarnate. The slayers of dragons, the gloating victors after the war, everything that the Miralem disdained and feared. But there were rumors that Lord Calvin experimented on prisoners to develop all of his spells. Are my parents' spirits trying to tell me something now that I've finally left Fernana? Mr. Care is more strongly against Lord Jaron's regime than the rest, Alfred said, circling back to the conversation. He came back after the war and gave speeches encouraging wounded veterans not to despair. Then he went to Nalin Ima and asked if Lord Geron could speak to the Fates again on the matter of whether blinded soldiers should commit suicide. The Peacock General gave him a firm and dismissive no, and made it clear that he would not be a friend of the regime if he continued to speak out. He threatened Mr. Kerr's life, so he ended up moving to the Vendiri district in Lyoness, and from there he wrote several books and worked on films to counter Colonite propaganda. "We're going to the Vendiri district?" Livonia asked. She had not entirely registered everything Alfred said because the dream kept troubling her. That bit of information leapt out to the forefront. The Vendiri were the only ethnic group of Daramons who stuck to an old religion, and for centuries they had mostly lived among the Miralem. Even their holy city lay within the boundaries of Avalon's territory. But Livonia had never met a Vendiri either. Like every other interesting sort of person, they didn't visit for Nana. They were known mainly for one thing, the magic of the spirit world, including reviving the dead, but most of all, speaking to the spirit world. The Vendiri claimed that the spirit world had two realms, Nar Kala and Lumra Kala, the near realm and the far realm. Only spirits of Nar Kala could be reached, as the spirits of Lumra Kala were preparing either for reincarnation or ascendance to the realm of the gods, and had drifted out of the reach of mortals. The Miralem religion spoke of 7 steps within the spirit realm, but it was a similar concept. The spirits of the dead could only be reached from the first step. Livonia hated to think her parents could be stuck on the first step after so many years, but it was said that troubled souls could be stuck for quite a while like ghosts, and maybe she owed it to them to investigate. I wonder if the Vendiri could explain these dreams and reach my parents. She would have to try and sneak away. She still wasn't ready to speak about this to Alfred. She loved how curious he was, but not in this case. Maybe they were only dreams, but such terrible events occurred within them, and she needed the answers on her own. Chapter 29. The Vendiri District. "There is no parking in this damn town," George grumbled. "They only had 10 parking spots to begin with, and where did all these tourists come from?" "We don't mind walking," Alfred said. "I hope you don't mind walking 3 miles. If he offers to give you 30 boxes of books, just say no." "Are we not big, strong men?" Alfred chuckled. "What a lazy Santarone." "I don't see you running every morning." "Running just to get a pastry doesn't count," Alfred retorted as they exchanged elbow jabs. It was true that the Vendiri district had changed since Alfred had last been here, some 15 years ago now, when Papa was first trying to show him how to negotiate with suppliers. They had approached a Vendiri sorcerer here, but failed to make a deal. Still, Alfred fondly remembered the trip. Vendiri coffee was very good. Now, as the tension and economic troubles of the post-war years were fading away, travelers were snooping around the old cobblestone streets. Everywhere he heard the click and shutter of their cameras and their children whispering questions about why everyone was wearing black and what was this and what was that. The Vendiri people seemed to ignore the visitors as best they could. What a fascinating place. Livonia was looking all around. Even with the trees bare for winter and all the buildings in gray and black, it's still so charming here. So many gardens. Do you know what the little boxes are in front of some of the houses? Those are offering boxes for the spirits, Alfred said. Just wait to see the temple and the graveyard. Their temple is covered top to bottom in old bones, and their graveyard takes up several blocks with lavish carved monuments. I've always wanted to check it out more thoroughly, and they have a night market that doesn't even begin until the sun goes down. "Do they have a particular district where all the sorcerers live?" she asked. "They mostly practice necromancy, don't they?" "They're scattered around," George said. "You can walk from one end of the neighborhood to the other in less than an hour. But Turan's house is just off this main street." "So many shops," she exclaimed, "and they're all selling old things, no radios or televisions at all." "No, indeed. The Vendiri have refused to electrify their neighborhood," Alfred said. "I heard it's caused a bit of an ideological rift, but for now the traditionalists win." "Guess that's what you get when the young men die in the war and the old men are still dragging around," George said. "And oof, are some of them ever old. You can't tell the living and the undead apart." "I can't help wishing they'd all hold out. I like when places feel frozen in time," Alfred said. History was palpable here, from the roots of ancient trees slowly driving up the stones of the sidewalks into wildly uneven angles, to the scents of incense and wood smoke, and even the rustle of the long skirts of ladies brushing by. Livonia seemed restless, in some way he couldn't quite put a finger on. "Are you all right, Blora?" I just have a bit of a headache," she said. "It's probably my moon cycle coming on." No woman had ever mentioned this to him before, but of course a Miralem girl would. "Do you need something?" "Yes, but I can take care of it," she said. "You should just see to business with Tehran. This area seems very safe, so I'll get what I need and rest in that coffee house back there. You'll probably want a cup of coffee when you're done anyway, knowing you." "Are you sure? It could wait a bit." He was a little disappointed that she didn't want to meet Tehran Care, but he knew nothing of this aspect of a woman's life. "I'm sure. It's just bad timing. Better to get some medicine and rest so we can have a nice evening." He didn't like parting from her. He didn't realize until he heard her footsteps rapidly disappearing in the other direction how much he'd gotten used to having her close by at all times. This was a very safe neighborhood, but... "George, can you follow her? Keep a good distance. Just make sure she's all right." "Are you going to find this guy's house on your own?" "I'll just ask someone for directions." George made a shuddering noise. "If you're sure." "Well, I'll meet back up at the coffee house," Alfred suggested. "I'll just feel better knowing you have eyes on her." Alfred wasn't sure what concerned him. Livonia wouldn't lie to him, but there was certainly the nagging matter of her parents' death, her uncle working for Det, supposedly, and the fact that no one had been able to find him. Alfred could understand wanting to keep a low profile while working on Det's campaign, but this seemed more like a man who had never wanted to be found. Not now, not ever. And why would he have insisted Livonia never leave for Nana? It was starting to seem more likely that her uncle had never existed. Someone was posing as him and trying to influence her. Chapter 30. A Suspicious Person. Alfred kept walking, according to George's directions. He should make a left in 4 blocks, and Mr. Care's house was the 3rd house on the right. There was a decent chance he could figure that one out without needing to ask for directions. Although the oldest part of Lioness had a chaotic pattern of streets, the Vendiri district was a grid with clearly delineated sidewalks and curbs, and although cars drove through slowly, pedestrians clearly ruled the day. It was probably safer than Atlantis, in fact. His home city seemed to have more hotshots behind the wheel. It was a little quieter as he neared the turn off the main road. Residential, probably, as there was no sense of bustle, and he could hear kids playing in the distance. The crisp air carried a scent of sepulchral... I don't use that word much, spoken. Sepulchral incense, and some operatic music wafted along from an old phonograph, faint enough that it didn't seem tethered to reality. Alfred crossed the street. He paused when he hit the curb. Someone was moving a little suspiciously behind him, but they stopped when he stopped. Alfred always knew when someone was moving suspiciously, if there wasn't too much other commotion, but there was admittedly a block after that. When they stopped moving at this distance, they effectively vanished, unless he wanted to use telepathy, which was a last resort. The headache usually wasn't worth whatever his scant ability gained. Still, he let his telepathy guide him just enough to note where the suspicious person had paused, and he gave them a little salute. "I know you're there." Might just be a curious Vendiri. He kept walking, trailing his hand along the low fence of the first house. There was the open gate, so that was one house down. Damn it, the suspicious man was coming up on him fast all of a sudden. Alfred turned and had just enough time to unsheath the blade from the cane, and now to use his telepathy to quickly scope out the state of his opponent. He was a big guy, taller than Alfred. He didn't seem to have a weapon, but small knives would escape Alfred's notice. There was no time to ask questions, fast as he was coming. Alfred thrust the blade at him. The man huffed, dropping to the ground and tackling Alfred around the legs. Alfred managed to fall without getting totally dominated. Galt used to drill Alfred and George in wrestling each other, so Alfred had a fair bit of experience fending off a larger opponent. The guy grabbed Alfred's arm, trying to get a hold of the blade. Alfred jabbed his other hand toward his eyes. He mostly hit his nose, but caught a little squish. "Huh," the man grunted with annoyance, but he wasn't saying a word as they grappled. He doesn't want me to recognize his voice, but he smelled like the warehouse. "Papa sent you, did he?" Alfred was still holding tight to his blade, but this guy wasn't lacking in wrestling skills himself, and it wasn't doing him any good. Only if he dropped it, the guy could grab it instead. If he put it away, he might be able to get the guy in a hold, maybe, in my dream world. But just as easily, the guy might pull out his own weapon. In the meantime, the guy was getting some punches on Alfred. Fuck, this was supposed to be George's job, and he was the fool who told George to make sure Livonia was all right. For the first time, a wave of regret poured over him. If I could see this guy. "Were you tailing me, waiting to see if George would leave?" Alfred managed to get a knee to the guy's balls. As the guy made an interesting noise, Alfred managed to get free of his grasp and sprung to his feet. He had one shot, and damned if he was going to hold back. This might be Papa's guy, but Daramons weren't easy to kill. He used a pulse of telekinesis to make sure he had the location, and a dart struck him. Because of course it did. This guy didn't need to take a painfully long second to line up his telekinesis before he did anything. Alfred quickly yanked the dart from his chest. Fuck, the wooziness was coming on fast. Hopefully the protection spells he wore would keep it from knocking him out entirely, but it wasn't helping his speed. He backed up, waving the blade, and reached in his pocket for an orb of knockout potion. These were a bad idea in close combat. You could knock yourself out, but at this point it hardly mattered. Maybe George would find them collapsed together. But a big hand whacked his out of the way, and the potion broke on the ground harmlessly. The man shoved him to the ground and pressed a blade to his neck. Enough messing around, boy. Now he knew it was Shizam, his father's best bruiser outside of Galt. I never stood a chance. You sure as fuck didn't. Shizam sounded furious. And you know why your father sent me. It's a lesson you're going to learn from someone else if you don't learn it from him. Alfred bristled. His father had gotten what he wanted. Alfred second-guessing himself, and the feeling wasn't fading as quickly as he'd like. Learn what? Does he want me to step down? He could just give me a call instead of a black eye. But I did return the favor to you, didn't I? Yeah, you tried to poke my fucking eyeballs out. Why shouldn't I? I don't know exactly what your father wants with you, but I do know what we all think. You fucked him over, and I'm not working for a selfish blind bastard. You don't just have to impress him, you know. You can't fight. Admit it already. You'll never be able to take care of yourself, so you might want to... Suddenly a burst of flame heated the air, and Shizam leapt up with a shout like his pants were on fire, which it seemed they might have been. Alfred scrambled to his feet again. Even the sleep potion dart was no match for this adrenaline. A hand grabbed his arm, patted his shoulder, and then his savior flicked a staff, and the heat died down. You'll never need to fight alone if you have allies, he said. He yelled at Shizam. Get off my street before you wake up Mrs. Denverell. Then we'll all pay, I tell you. Who the fuck are you? I'm the selfishest, blindest bastard you'll ever meet. Shizam spat. Oh, your father's gonna love this, he said, but I'll give him the report first, you can be sure. Off my street. Mr. Care? Alfred tried to straighten out his clothes again, then prodded a sore spot on his cheekbone. I apologize for causing trouble on your street. Yeah, right in front of this old shrew's house, you better be. She must be off in dreamland, or she'd already be screaming at me. Now, who are you? You must be one of the Order, but I don't think we've met in person. We've never met at all. I'm not a member of the Order. I'm too young for that, but I have admired your work since I was young. I guess you could say I'm a scholar of the Order. Turan paused. I don't like that, he muttered. Since you were young? Now what does that make me? You're one of the youngest members of the Order, of course, Alfred said graciously, realizing he had already blundered, but it was easy to be thrown off your game when you were randomly attacked by your father's own goon. And clearly still at the top of your game. Thanks for saving my ass. How did you know to help me? Oh, the kids were out playing, and whenever they see a random blind guy coming up the street, they figure he's coming to see me, and they come running. When we have guests, we make a pie, and they would live on pie if they could, that little swarm of sugar ants. So you're a scholar of the Order. But who in dark horses was that guy? I'm from the families, and that was my father's number 2 bodyguard. Alfred briefly told Turan the story while he scuffed his foot around and found the bottom half of his cane. The sheath of the blade had gotten lost in the shuffle. I didn't realize my father was, in fact, naming me heir with the expectation that this curse would be lifted eventually. And I didn't realize he would be so angry at what I did. Of course, you might think I'm just as crazy. Well, I turned down a cure myself, so I can't judge. It was for very different reasons, however. Still, it crosses my mind now and then that I could afford a cure if I really wanted one. It would certainly ease some frustrations, but Ajna crystal is so expensive and so limited. I could send all my girls to a good school and pay for all their weddings and still not match the cost of that crystal. It's also been 40 years now, and I didn't marry a looker, but in my mind, my wife and the girls are cute as can be, and I'm a handsome young buck. One thing I know, if you have a good wife, you don't rock that boat. Of course, that's why those so-called curable curses aren't really that curable at all. No one can afford those cures. It's astonishing how often people don't realize that, but if you're from the families, you do know. Yes, and magic is an interest of mine more than your average merchant. What's your specialty? I'm not a sorcerer myself, Alfred said. I'm not sure I have the talent or even the interest. What interests me is keeping the knowledge, making contacts with as many sorcerers as possible, and supporting them financially as well as with legalities and protections. I'm sure you're aware that magic is fading out in most of the Darmon provinces. Miralim countries too, Turan said. Not so much right here in the Vendiriashi, but in the world as a whole. Kids these days want to be actresses and fashion designers and start bands. When I was a kid, everyone wanted to be a sorcerer. The Colonites were one of the more talented groups of sorcerers the world had ever seen, and they burned the path behind them, Alfred said, making sure to slip in some criticism of Turan's enemies while they were agreeing like old men. Alfred used to ride his bike down to the park where the old men played chess, pester them for hours with questions about the war, and in the process he had learned how to complain like a centenarian. So you're having some trouble with your father, eh? He thinks you can't fight, and if you can't fight, you're not up to the job. Turan started strolling back to his house. I can fight, Alfred said, still shaking off that sudden hopeless feeling that Papa was in fact right. He would never strike fear into anyone on his own. You're not a sorcerer or a telepath, so I'm betting you can't fight that well. Maybe not on my own, Alfred admitted, but if my Santaroon was here, we make a good team. George has my back, but I'm better at doing the ugly jobs than him, frankly. Alfred wiped the tip of his blade and sheathed it, gripping the wolf's head. I got in a few blows, but he wished he'd smelled blood. But your father thinks you should be able to tackle it on your own, I'd bet. Even though he sent his man to teach you a lesson, so where's old Papa at? And what brings you to me? I think the families have overlooked the sorcerers of the Order of the Arcane Hand, Alfred said. I know how much talent there is among the group, but most people back home still don't see it. I've experienced it firsthand, as you heard. My parents have always been completely obsessed with the bad image of having a blind heir. But sometimes I feel like I'm waving my hand in their faces and they don't know I'm there. The public shame overwhelms them and all they can think about is how to fix that. Now that I don't have much to lose, I decided it was time to talk to the Order because I admire all of you and your stories gave me the pride that my parents lacked. I would be honored to have you as a supplier. Of potions? Magical artifacts of any and all kinds, Alfred said. I'm interested in anything you have to offer, even the obscure. As long as it's illegal. We buy legal spells too, Alfred said. We were just regular magic merchants before we started dealing more in the black market. And it is still a part of the business. This was less ideal, but he'd get his foot in any way he could. A swarm of shouting children came running out of the house as Turan passed through the gate. Favorn! Can we go to the market and get cranberries for the pie? Yes, we have apples, but we want cranberries. We'll hurry. I told you kids to go back to school, Turan roared at them. But school's almost over. Please. Last time we had company, we got to stay home. Fine, go get your damn cranberries. Just be quiet about it so I don't hear about you little hoodlums from the neighbors. Turan fished out some coins and they stampeded off in a pack, one of them stepping on Alfred's foot without even being aware of it, a barefoot by the feel of it, screaming out their giddy thank yous. Quiet, Turan screamed at them. Be good little Vendiri girls. Living corpses, remember? They slowed all the way down to a stagger. Ugh, one of them said, apparently impersonating said corpse. How many children do you have? Alfred asked. Triplet girls. Not identical, thank the gods. We waited too long to have them, and then I decided to whip up a fertility spell to help things along, and before I knew it, it worked too well. So, I'm interested, Turan said. They all eat like bears. Who knew little girls could eat so much? And I would like to send all 3 of them to universities in Drenalil. Plus our Finarlum servant. She's a smart little thing, and she works her feet off. We won't need her when the girls are grown, and I'd love to get her a better education. Come in, watch your step. Turan's house felt spacious as they walked through the entrance room into a living space, but smelled like dust and soup. Turan patted down the sofa and threw some things off of it and across the room where one of them crashed into something and knocked it off a shelf. Is everything all right, Mr. Care? A voice called from the depths of the house, presumably the Finarlum servant. You bet, he shouted back. But could you get the kitchen ready for making a pie? There, have a seat, Mr. Braviter. I'll fix you up a drink. That's all right, Alfred said. I don't usually drink. Don't drink? What Atlantean doesn't drink? And you want to make a deal? You don't want me thinking too much, do ya? I don't need you thinking too much, just me, Alfred said wryly. That's no fun. You're having a drink with me if you want a deal. Are you the type who never likes to let loose? I like to keep my wits about me, that's... Uh-huh, I thought so. Wits, who needs them? You already got beat today, might as well enjoy life. All right, hit me with it, Alfred said, throwing his cares to the wind. Your average sorcerer was a mysterious, aloof type who responded well to restraint. But Turan was clearly not that type. Turan was certainly nothing like Livonia, but they did have one thing in common. The concerns that kept his parents up at night seemed ridiculous here. In Atlantis, the rules about how to look and speak and behave dominated even the smallest interaction. Meanwhile, here, you could have toys on the sofa and barefoot children. Alfred could not imagine what his mother would have said if he left the house barefoot. There was already the great drama over the time George bought himself a pair of running shorts. There you are. Turan plunked a glass on the table in front of him. More where that came from. Do you have a place to stay tonight? Oh, I have more guest rooms in this house than I know what to do with. Any fan of mine is a friend of mine. Now, what's your plan for working around your dear old dad? He's not going to like me, is he? You'll never meet. I already handle a lot of the suppliers on my own. Yeah, but Chuckle Knuckles out there is going to go tell him what you're up to, and what will he say? It doesn't matter if we make a profit. Make him a profit? Some stubborn-sighted bastard. I can judge too. Judging is easy. Damn. It was the same problem he'd had with Grau Thanneau all over again. He could get in the door with anyone the other families rejected out of hand, but he couldn't get clients when he was working for his father. Going out on his own was getting more tempting, but it was career suicide. His father could block him from acquiring office or warehouse space, or from docking boats for transport, just to name the more benevolent actions he might take. And the other families would smell blood in the water and happily exploit the feud. He would also need more security, a lawyer, and capital for purchasing stock, as well as paying off the police. I know, you can't just shake him off, Turan said. How about this? If we can work out suitable payment terms, I'll make potions for you, but I'm not making destructive spells for your father. Healing spells only. Hey, my fertility spell works great. There is a market for that, Alfred said. It was something. It probably wouldn't impress Papa that much, however. This wasn't the lead he was hoping for either. Maybe other members of the order who had fewer morals or greater financial needs would offer him more. But time was ticking away, and Papa was furious. He had to find some way of convincing Turan that it wasn't straying from his morals to create a weapon. He sipped his whiskey, mulling over everything he knew of Turan, mostly from the notes and letters of the other members of the order, the older, stodgier men who had passed away. A fair few of them didn't care much for Turan. Do you ever think that some of the men in the order deserve their fate? Alfred asked. They were colonites. Most of them probably still think your Finarlem servant doesn't deserve an education. I don't believe in fate, Turan said. I don't either, but I do believe that sometimes justice stumbles into the right man. If only it would stumble into the ones at the top already, Turan muttered. Most of the men in the order, I'd say, didn't know any better. I was like that myself once, but when Lord Jaren's creeds turn on you, it has a way of showing the raw everywhere. Believe me, a number of them have been questioning the policies around Finarlem, too. More of them are voting for debt than your average old man. It's too bad it takes something so drastic to break the spell of the colonites, Alfred said. If I knew a better way, I'd certainly have used it. But when the dust settles, perhaps the Order are better men for losing their sight. One moment you're a powerful sorcerer, able to dominate nearly anyone you meet. The next moment you're vulnerable and forced to reflect. Well, not all of them join the Order. Maybe hardship just shows man's true character. Turan knocked back the rest of his drink. But you're leading me into something. Just get to it. I want your healing or fertility spells, but I also want blinding potions, Alfred said. Parasitic if you know how to make them. I'll pay you handsomely. Of course I can make parasitic. You know who you're talking to, but I don't believe that they'll only be used on people who deserve it. 90% of them never get used at all, but they're still one of the best weapons against Daramons. Daramons, mind you, not Miralem. Blinding a telepath like Det wouldn't be worth it. The few that are being used will likely be on men who choose violence in peaceful times. What sort of man is that? Could be on either side. But who is the most vulnerable? Not Miralem, certainly not Finarlem, who are entirely immune. Not even Daramon women, who have always been discouraged from learning sorcery or physical fighting. Not the lower classes, who can't afford a magical education. I suppose there is some truth in that, Turan said. We never have enough suppliers who can make parasitic spells. As you know, that takes far more skill. One vial of the stuff is running 1,500 elan wholesale, he added. Gods, Tehran murmured. A few batches would take care of the tuition. You would get peace of mind for your family. You could use the money for good purpose. I want to work with suppliers like you, because otherwise where does this money go? You're taking it from the hands of a colonite sorcerer. Another round, Tehran said, patting his arm roughly. I want to see how your character holds up when you're vulnerable. I'm more fun, so I hear, Alfred said, but aren't your girls coming back to make pie soon? Like they haven't seen my friends drunk before, Tehran said dismissively. If you cause them any trouble, they know how to gang up. Alfred grimaced. Sometimes the cost of doing business was one's dignity. Chapter 31. Searching for Spirits. Livonia stepped into a dimly lit vestibule with a shelf full of bones to greet her. A heavy crimson curtain divided the front room from whatever lay beyond. She heard soft voices somewhere. The smell was funny, medicinal. She recoiled from it a little instinctively, just knowing what necromancers got up to. This was the first necromancer's workshop she passed on the street. It wasn't like she had time to ask around. A pale, thin man, clad entirely in black, slipped out from the curtain. Are you here to see Mistress Wonora? If I can afford her, I have 20 elan on me. I just wanted to know if she could get in contact with my parents in the spirit world. He smiled mildly at her obvious nerves. That should be enough. I'll show you into the parlor, and she will see you shortly. Livonia fidgeted, hoping it wouldn't take long. She needed to get back to the coffee shop in time. A tall clock in an ornate wooden case ticked the minutes in the corner while a fireplace crackled low. A painting hung over the mantel of a woman being pursued by a skeleton in a cape riding a horse. Livonia turned to see what was on the other walls and saw the painting's twin, the woman sleeping half naked in a canopy bed, while the skeleton brushed his bony fingers along her shoulder. Oh my. Mistress Wonora kept her waiting until precisely 1 minute after the clock chimed and made her nearly jump out of her chair. The necromancer stepped out, so lithe that she was on her way to becoming a skeleton herself, clad all in black and a thin veil over her white powdered face. Oh, I don't know you. How can I help you, traveler? Her voice was surprisingly sweet and normal. I've been having strange dreams. I feel like they might be a message from my parents. I wondered if they are still reachable, even though they died many years ago. Do spirits ever wait around to keep speaking to their children? Some linger in Narkala for a very long time, yes, while others can never be reached at all from the moment they pass on. Come with me. Do you have anything that belonged to them? Only myself? This was impromptu, and I'm in a bit of a hurry, Livonia added. My traveling companions don't know I went to speak to you. We'll see what we can do with the time we have. They settled into a small room, even more dimly lit, with just a pair of beeswax candles. A scrying instrument sat on the table. Livonia had seen these in books. She tapped a Tara crystal with a wand and slid it around the edge while it sang. This was said to call the voices of spirits. Tell me their names, Mistress Wonora said. Adelise, Orleston, and Laren Ryehessen. And your name? Livonia. She nodded. Take my hand. She clasped Livonia's hand in her cool fingers while she stood and tapped the crystal. An eerie tone came out of it, the sound swirling and looping as she slowly circled the crystal with the pencil-sized wand. It reminded her of the tones from the Glyniver. Spirits of Narkala, hear my voice. I seek the soul of Adelise Orleston and Laren Ryehessen. Your daughter Livonia is here. Livonia's heart beat fast. She hoped she was ready for this. She would rather think her parents had moved on, wouldn't she? But what would it mean to have answers? The sound continued, driving out everything else with its high-pitched song. It seemed to evolve as it went, spinning lower and then higher again. But maybe that was her imagination. Livonia shut her eyes. She seemed to perch on the edge of the sound, ready to tumble into it, swept into the revolutions like a whirlpool. Stay away. I told you to stay away. The voice seemed to leak from the crystal. Livonia jolted. Mistress Wonora gripped her hand tight. She's looking for you. No, she's watching you and waiting. You don't want to know the real story. I told you not to leave for Nana. Is it too late? You need to hide from her. Don't look for me, Livonia. Don't ever look for me. "This is not from Narcala. This is your father, but he's alive," Mistress Leonora gasped, and she sounded frightened herself. The voice sent ice down Livonia's spine before it boiled her guts. She bolted from the chair and to the door, pausing hurriedly to give all her money to the servant. "I'm sorry," she gasped. She didn't understand, not fully, just enough to know that it was very bad, and tears wouldn't stop flowing from her eyes. "Livonia!" George caught up with her, appearing from behind her. "What the hell happened? Do I need to punch somebody?" "No." She scurried past him. "Should I find Alfie?" No, it's personal, George." George kept following her at a distance, but it was impossible not to be aware of a 7-foot man several paces behind you. Suddenly this wonderful dream she'd been living in was stomped flat. There was no space to cry, to collect herself. Her father was alive. She should be overjoyed, maybe. It was a dream to find out one of her parents was actually alive. Instead, she was terrified. Was he the one writing me all along? Do I even have an Uncle Frajavel? She reached the coffee house. George handed her a handkerchief. "We're all in this together, you know," he said. "You don't even know what this is." "I don't think it matters. If you're part of the crew, you're part of the crew." "Thanks." She made sure the handkerchief was clean and didn't have a smashed chocolate hazelnut in it somewhere, then wiped her face. "Let's get pastry," George said, eyeing up the displays in the window. "You'll feel better." But she barely had an appetite now. George sat across from her, all jutting knees, in a petite little cafe chair, and ripped into something flaky and cream-filled. "It's really that bad?" he asked after a moment. "No appetite for pastry bad?" She nodded. After a moment of agonizing silence, she sighed and admitted the truth. "I tried to get in contact with my parents in the spirit world, and this voice told me she's looking for me, that I should never have left for Nana. I thought it might be my uncle, but the necromancer said it was my father. She said he's not dead. I might be in some kind of danger, and I don't know how deep it goes. I don't want to put you and Alfred in danger." George shrugged. "Sounds like another day. Did Alfie tell you how we awakened a malevolent ghost once while treasure hunting? We were in this mountain cave, and it was already about the creepiest place we'd ever been, just the two of us. I'm sure something very bad happened there. Alfred's banging on stuff, and you could definitely hear the magic hiding in the cave, but that does not mean you should mess with it. Suddenly, something cuts a lock of my hair. I couldn't see anything, but I sure felt it. Then my hair was just gone. I was sure some dark spirit was about to cast a curse on me. As I'm trying to find where this chunk of hair went, the magic light just goes right out. I tell Alfred, and he says, 'That's okay.' Like I just told him a bulb burned down the living room. He's so bent on getting to this treasure that he's starting to crawl into a space that's barely big enough for a man. I grabbed him and I threw him over my shoulder and hauled his ass out of there. It was daylight when we went in, and somehow in about an hour it's the middle of the night. Time distortion. And then behind us, we suddenly heard this voice chanting and this ragged whisper that kept getting closer and closer, only nothing was there. At this point, even Alfie was starting to register that maybe we woke up a demon or something. We're both running to the car, which was a good 2 miles away, and tripping on rocks and trees and hauling each other up. Nearly fell off the mountain because the forest is blocking out the moon and magic light is dead. We finally make it to the car, and I peel out, and Alfred holds up this obsidian ring and says, "Well, at least I got this." And I said, "They still have a lock of my hair." "But you never got cursed by it, did you?" "Well, I had to spend the rest of my life protecting that idiot," George said. He sighed. "Ellie found some priestess to bless me, and I guess it worked." Livonia finally nibbled at the pastry. It was hard not to feel a little bit better, with the smell of coffee in the air and people enjoying their drinks themselves all around. "Whatever's going on with you, we'll help you figure it out," George said, "because we do stupid things all the time." "When did you start working for Alfred?" she asked, even though she thought she knew the answer. "When he was born, I guess," George said. "Just kinda keeping an eye on him like a little brother. That's how it goes with Santaroons. Our fathers grew up together too, but it's hard to imagine they were ever kids. But Santaroons are more a part of the family than other servants. Alfie's mother was as protective of me as she was of Alfie. You just don't have a choice." "Well, neither of us had a choice," George said. "But, you know, if Alfie's ever going to seize a choice, it's now. Have you ever thought about making a choice yourself? Do you even really want to be a Santaroon?" George said. "I'm just not good with people. Alfie does all the talking." It's a relief just to follow him around. I don't know what else I would do. But you never intend to date or marry? If I fell in love. You know, this life. He waved his hands. Like your kids would be Santaroon for Alfred's kids? Our oldest boys, George said. And I've come home hurt. I've come home having, hurt other people. Or watched Alfie do it, at the least. Oh. Her eyes widened. But this isn't news to you, she thought. You already know this. Alfred has a ruthless side, and some part of you likes that. Probably shouldn't say this, George mumbled. I know what the families do, she said, composing herself. She sensed that George was different from her. Alfred was not. There was something within them that was the same, that hunger for more. Maybe I'll find the right girlfriend someday, but it has to be right. She has to fit. He looked at her a little more carefully. I think you do kind of fit with Alfie, more than Thessia. And you wouldn't fit with Thessia? Thess is out of my league, George said. She couldn't marry a Santaroon, especially one who isn't even good at the job, really. You seem to do just fine. Livonia trailed off as Alfred staggered into the shop, walking a little diagonal, and George rushed to guide him to the table. Alfie, are you drunk? Maybe. I hate it. Alfred clung to George. That Tehran guy is a menace. Is Livonia here? Yeah, come on, keep it together. How did you even get here? A child led me here, Alfred said. One of Tehran's triplets. I know all about school drama. It's very important to have the most skulls at home, and I'm afraid I agreed to sleep in his guest rooms. His wife is out of town. They made us a pie. We're all doomed. I'll get your espresso, George said. Livonia felt an intense relief to see him. His absence hadn't struck her half as hard as his return. She never wanted to let him go, and she took his hand when he sat down. She had to touch him. She had to touch his face and try to hang on to him, the reality of him and all the weeks they had spent together. Ballora. He seemed a little surprised and turned toward her. He brushed his fingers across her chin in return, and she thought he was going to kiss her, but he hesitated. Something's wrong. I'm okay. I'll tell you later, she said. She didn't understand how any of this could be. Her father alive. That didn't seem possible. The dreams weren't just dreams, she knew. They were real events. Someone had tortured her father, but left him alive, left him in a horrific state, and handed him over to Lord Calvin for what? But he must have escaped. He was still alive. And now, Livonia thought, now the woman who hurt him is looking for me, and he never wanted to be found, not even by his own daughter. Chapter 32. Old Bones and New Bonds. It was certainly an energetic evening, staying with Tehran. He talked more than Alfred, and his kids talked more than him. Alfred couldn't help feeling impressed. Livonia and George nearly vanished behind this wall of words until George mentioned television, and all the kids whirled on him. You have a television? Does everyone have a television in Atlantis? Heh, no, George said. We're important. Fei, aren't we important? Why don't we have a television? We don't have electricity. So we're not important? When can we get electricity? Never. No one's getting electricity here. It makes you soft. Aww. Can I show Alfred Great Auntie's skull? Oh yeah, can we? I don't care. Your mother's not home, Tehran said, and literally 2 seconds later a skull was deposited on Alfred's lap with no warning while he was trying to eat the apple cranberry pie that the girls had made. Livonia was cackling with laughter by this time, so he passed the skull to her. Ah, no, you keep it. That's the only skull we have, the one daughter said sadly. This was the one who told him of her great shame at school. Because Fei doesn't even have any skulls at all. No one in Atlantis has family skulls, I'm afraid, Alfred said. Why don't you take this back and be careful with your great aunt? We do have great-great-grandfather's femur. I'll check it out before I leave, he said, but they were already back at the family altar moving bones around. Tehran finally got up, rattling all the plates on the table. Girls, I said you could show off the skull, but if you start messing with that altar, your mother's going to skin me when she gets home. Old Bones were probably very clean, but the pie just tasted kind of off after that. Plus, he was pretty sure he ate a few cat hairs. On the bright side, he and Livonia shared a room. Tehran had 2 guest rooms, and while he could have paired up with George, Livonia clearly wanted him nearby. They had never shared a bedroom at night before. It wasn't really that different from their nights talking on the couch, or at least it shouldn't have been. but there was something about coming to bed at the same time, as the house was quieting down. The sound of her moving seemed softer, with her feet bare and her nightgown rustling and her hand turning back the blankets and giving her pillow a little fluff. "They're a very cute family," she said. "Wild, but cute." "I wouldn't hate having 3 wild girls someday," he said. "Just not all at once." "Sounds like a plan," she said in that teasing but not really way that made him want to speed up time and see where it all went. But he didn't want to rush a minute of it either. "Tell me what happened earlier, Ballora," he said, sitting on the other side of the bed. It was a very sturdy old bed with feather-stuffed tick, but not overly large. "I'm sorry I was drunk." She laughed. "I got a little drunk myself tonight. Turan certainly sloshes it around." But she leaned her head on his shoulder. "You already have so much going on." "You can tell me anything. I can handle it." She swallowed. "I think my father is alive, and something very bad happened to him. He never wanted me to find him. George told me you saw a necromancer. I thought maybe I could get in touch with my parents, and I did, but the woman who harmed him is looking for me. I just know it." "Yeah. Oh, hello." Her breath shook. "I've been having dreams about this for a long time, since childhood. I thought they were just manifestations of anger and grief for my parents dying when I was a baby. On the surface, I've always thought I was fine. I had my grandparents and a big family, no shortage of love and support, but I knew my parents had been killed by Daramons. I knew nothing of my father, and my mother was the only Orleston to ever leave for Nana. You've always been very independent," he suggested, and she nodded against his shoulder. "Even if he doesn't want me to look for him, I want to do it anyway. I won't keep hiding, and I'm starting to think Uncle Frajavel never existed because he was actually my father, but he must be hiding himself well. I suppose there is one thing to try." "What is that?" "Go to a key Det Arianni speech. If Uncle Frajavel is, in fact, your father, and he does work for Det, he should be in attendance. Maybe you can see him or sense him. I can get a hold of a crystal that will help you sense your own blood. It works much better with fathers than uncles. There's a speech in Arana Park on December 2nd that should fit the bill." "Could we? That sounds like a good idea. Is it dangerous?" "Everything is dangerous." He shrugged. "My father sent a man after me today. He knocked me around right on the street 2 doors down from this house." "Your father sent someone to beat you up, just to prove a point?" "Yep, and it worked. When I was trying to fight him off, I got a few hits in, but considering Papa sent him, he was going easy, I'm sure." He sighed. "I really question myself. Like, maybe Papa was right. I do make hasty decisions, and Papa is thinking long term. Maybe in 20 years, by the time he retired, this telepathic therapy would be long behind me, and I would be much more formidable." "But you didn't choose this to be more formidable, did you? You just wanted to stay the same person you've always been." "Yeah, I just had a moment of doubt. And then Turan showed up and shot a fireball at him. He said, 'You'll never need to fight alone if you have allies.' I've been worrying that I can't fight alone, but I rarely have to. I have George, and why stop there? I could build the business in a different way than my father, with people I like and trust." Alfred squeezed her hand. "You don't need to do this alone either, Ballora. I'll help you find him, and whoever this woman is, we'll handle her together." She was quiet and shook slightly under his touch. He soon realized she was crying. "Ballora, I'm sorry. I don't know why I'm crying. How stupid. It's not easy to be all alone, even if you're good at it." "I never knew them, but I miss them so much," she said, her voice tearing with pain. "I should be happy he's alive, but I'm terrified. I know he's not the same. His soul was torn to shreds. I've seen it in my dreams." Suddenly she started sobbing, wretched tears that she was trying to choke back. She was crying like no one in the families would ever cry, and he held her against his chest and felt that sadness rack her, listened to it pour out of her, muffled by his clothes, the way it would if no one ever told you it was wrong to cry. He didn't try to stop her. He just held her, increasingly aware of the warmth of her skin and the silky fabric of the nightgown and the rope of golden hair that had fallen across his hand. Alfred had certainly thought about sex enough times in his life. He never acted on it because he wasn't the type to cheat on Thessia. And he never really understood why any man would cheat, besides that most men were misogynist jerks. He took pride in being of a better class than that. "Thank the fates, I did break it off with Thess." He cared for this girl so much that he wanted to draw her whole soul into his own. He wanted to hold on to her forever and never let her go. And he wanted her in a way that went far beyond carnal desire, although that also sounded damn good. It was just that sex was the closest he could ever get to merging with her. He gripped her tighter, and she gripped him back. Eventually, her tears finally ran dry, and she took a shuddering breath. I feel a little better, she said. I guess I needed that, and we'll help each other. I think you're right. You will run the business very differently from your father. You can attract some very different suppliers. Buyers, too, I bet. Physical and magical powers aren't the only talents that matter. I should probably work on my telepathic abilities. I could help you more as a telepath than as the neighborhood herbalist. And if I can find my father and his soul is so badly damaged... Don't take on too much, he said. We can find a skilled telepathic healer to help your father. But if you do want to be a part of this business, truly, then we're in it together. I didn't show up at your house to recruit you. You showed up so I could destroy your life? She teased. So you could help me build something. They were already pressed so close, it was only a short distance to meet her lips. They brushed, sharing breath, slowly letting the kiss unfold until he finally slipped his tongue into her mouth and leaned her back on the bed. I want to marry you, he said. He thought her sensible side might spring back to life and tell him it was too soon, because it probably was. But all she said was, okay, and then she pulled him closer still. Chapter 33. Jump into the fire. She had been craving this so badly without hardly knowing it, years of loneliness and emptiness, trying to tell herself the life she had was enough when it wasn't. He kissed her deeply again, and when he started to pull back, she tugged his collar to her again. He was wearing dark blue pajamas, and she unbuttoned them, only to sigh slightly when he was wearing an undershirt under the pajamas. Modern men are very overdressed. How many ancient men have you disrobed? She laughed. People wore even more layers before showers were invented, Alfred said. Okay, fine. Bringing a history fact to a makeout session is... Extremely, Alfred. Sorry. He paused and brushed his fingers along her hairline, then down to her collarbone. Are we doing this? Yes. I mean, do you want to? Do you have your period? I don't know if that matters. I just said that to get time to myself. She realized he seemed a little nervous, while she was also very nervous. Probably more so, because she knew it was usually a little painful the first time. Sometimes even a lot painful. She couldn't cry out in Tehran's house. Still, she just wanted him anyway. You've done this before, haven't you? His brow furrowed. No. You think Thessia and I have been having sex and I wouldn't mention that? I thought Dharaman fathers always take their son to see a woman when they come of age or something. Not as much anymore, he said, still idly caressing her a little lower now, not quite at her nipples, but close, driving her to utter distraction. Well, Papa did offer, but we were already discussing the engagement with Thessia, and I wasn't about to tell her I'd seen a perfume woman. She would not appreciate that at all. Do you even, how do you find out about sex? I only know from watching farm animals and a few illustrated books. Well, I wish I could say that someone in the order left behind a sophisticated manual, or at least some beautiful erotic writings, but no. At one point in life, George and I were two adolescent boys unsupervised in a huge library, Alfred said. There was a lot of awkward whispered reading in this one corner in the library basement. George ripped out a few pages and made clay models of them. Is this my most embarrassing story? It's up there. She kissed his nose. I'd much rather we learned together. I thought you'd surely slept with some courtesan. Still, I'm glad you know, well, maybe as much as I do. Farm animals only teach you so much, so this might be awkward, but I have no doubt we'll get very good at it. He grinned and then pulled off her nightgown. She stripped off his undershirt. Both were crumpled together on the floor, and he topped the pile with his pajama bottoms. What a good-looking man, she thought. It was hard to believe that when he showed up she thought he was like any other wealthy Dharaman man. Well, it was amazing what love could do, because he was the same person, but now she was sure she would spot him instantly in a crowd of 1,000 blandly handsome Dharamans. He did have a number of bruises, especially on his shins, and some of them were clearly too old to be from today. She remembered guiltily when she moved a box aside at his office without thinking, and he whacked into it. Now their kisses deepened, if that was even possible, and he kept exploring her with his hand, now reaching the nipples, and she shuddered. Good spot. Is there something I should be doing? Should I be stroking your, Not yet, Ballora. You're so beautiful. Let's not end it too soon, but I'll never complain about verbal encouragement in your sexy voice. Do I have a sexy voice? Your voice is very cute. Your little accent says, I have no time for nonsense, but it gets huskier when you're flirting with me. Her cheeks heated, but she was glad he found that cute. She feared she just sounded like a peasant. Okay, I'll try. You can move your hand lower, by the way. You should probably get a feel for your destination. Here. He moved his fingers between her legs over her underwear first, but even then she was a little embarrassed at the squishy little sound that made. Damn, he whispered, flushing a little himself. He paused again. Is it true that Marilyn don't need birth control? It's true. I won't conceive a child unless I want one. I guess the one danger is that I'm not entirely sure my subconscious doesn't want your child. Damn, he repeated. I didn't expect that to sound so sexy either, but it wouldn't be very good timing yet. I didn't bring any potion for that. It's okay, I'll try very hard to reject all your sperm. Poor guys. One last little chuckle between them, because that was the best thing of all, she thought, how easy it was to laugh together. And then he slipped his hand beneath her panties, and she felt her body just sort of surrender, utterly surrender after so many years of feeling like a lone soul, tensed and hunkered against a cold and solitary world. His body was so warm beside her own, both of them a little sweaty even in the cold room, a clean and earthy smell of pure desire. He stroked her, kissed her, pressed her deeper into the pillows. The last bits of clothing were flung onto the pile, and he filled her, completed her, became her companion in this world forever. She felt it was true. She had surely known him forever. Maybe in some other life, maybe deep in her soul. It didn't really matter, only that he had found her, and it would never have happened if her mother hadn't cursed his grandfather. Chapter 34. Livonia insists on vegetables. Once they arrived home, Livonia felt it was time to declare that she was taking charge of the kitchen. If they were having sex, well, surely that meant this was serious enough that she could insist. They had been eating a lot of takeout and other things she barely considered to be meals. I don't expect you to be our cook, Ballora. I want to. You two don't eat any vegetables, and the grocers here look like they have everything I could imagine. It'll be exciting for me. Exciting for you, eh? How many vegetables? A reasonable amount, dear Alfie. His cheeks flushed a little, and he leaned closer to her ear like he was going to tell her a secret. I really want to tell you not to do that. But it kind of does it for me, the bossiness. So you like being bossed. I like it when you try. Let's go to the grocer's then, and see who wins the test of wills. She could feel his hand burning her arm, through her coat, the lean of his taller body against his, as they walked to the corner of the street. The take-out food, sandwiches, pastries, and packaged snacks were fine for a little while, luxuries even. But now she just wanted home cooking. The culinary priorities of Atlantis were apparent as soon as they walked into the market. The whole place had a clean oceanic smell, and a long glass case of fish on ice lined one side of the store. There were overflowing displays of fresh produce and interesting things in unusual packaging. She grabbed a basket. Feast day, she said, looking at the display with a sign that said, a feast day for families big and small. Oh my goodness, all those turkeys and geese and pigs. They were hanging up in the back over the butcher counter. That's a little gruesome. Is that like our harvest feast back home? I guess that is this week, Alfred said. I really must be in trouble at home if I'm not invited for holidays, but I don't love the family meal anyway. What sort of things would you like? She asked him. Sausage swanzeron could be good. With peppers? It's sort of a casserole, isn't it? That seems easy. What else is in it? What kind of peppers? She veered to the produce department. She was pleasantly surprised to see such a beautiful variety in the winter, including tropical fruit. You're asking the wrong person. Have you ever bought groceries? If George won't do it, I call the store delivery guy. You can't buy groceries, she asked, knowing perfectly well that anyone who could find an 8th-century-old treasure behind a stone in a castle could pick up a few things at the corner store. He scowled. I'm sure I can, I just don't need to. What if you ever have to figure it out for yourself? That would never happen, he said. I'm a very busy man. I haven't even mentioned that I oversee 5 casino boats. Oh boy, really? She grabbed some beautiful salad greens. Well, I manage the guy who manages the casino boats. I'm very impressed, but isn't all of this getting shaky? Don't you need to prepare for life without a yacht? Help me pick out some peppers. She held one up to him. Does this smell like what's in Swanseron? That smells green. No, we want mostly sweet peppers and a couple of hot ones. She smiled. I actually am impressed that you can identify raw peppers. I do like good food, he said. We're just hopeless bachelors. And I bet my mother doesn't even know how to turn an oven on. I never imagined I would live with a woman who could cook. An employee burst out of the stockroom with a cart full of even fresher stuff. She grabbed a few different types of peppers while Alfred's hand casually regarded a display of mangoes. He sniffed one and put it back. I'm not comfortable being poor, but you're not very comfortable with posh living, are you, Ballora? Well, no. You think I'm spoiled and lacking in some basic skills of adulthood. I never said that. I can tell. He grabbed a melon, holding it under his arm. Maybe I should chop the peppers, he said. Have you ever chopped a pepper before? I'll let you guess. She grinned. I have noticed you make your own coffee and toast, so there is some hope. I think most men in your position would make your Santaroon do it, or keep a live-in maid. That's probably true, he said. Thank you for noticing. You do have to balance bossiness with positive reinforcement, she said, and moved on to picking out some sausages together. Real quick, there's another little dream sequence with italics here. It's a little jarring, so I just wanted to let you know, since you cannot see the italics in audio form. Wake up, sister. A hand shook her in the darkness. Even in the dream, Livonia could feel her own consciousness fighting it. No, I'm not here. I'm back home with Alfred. But she was alone in the dream, drowning in it, her head heavy with long braids, as she rose in the shadows to see another Halnari woman with the same long braids and a face of unpleasant perfection. An army messenger was just here. That Miralem woman broke into the facility in Vusarin to rescue Raihessen. Did they capture her? Terror was already seeping through her based on her sister's face. I'm sorry, they opened fire on her and he got out. Who shot her? Before I could interrogate her, I need the child. Livonia woke with her hands in the air, shaking the empty space that was the Halnari's sister. She was sleeping in Alfred's bed now, but he wasn't there. She calmed herself down as best she could. She heard footsteps in the living room, and glad to be unhappy, playing very softly. And all she could think was, thank goodness it's not just me. She swathed herself in a blanket and wandered outside. Alfred was leaning back on the couch in the moonlight with a can of Jazz Trio. Oh no, not the espresso, she said. That seems like giving up. He lifted it like a toast. I didn't want to wake you, but I'm glad if I did. No, I can't sleep either. She came over beside him, snuggling into her blanket. Something's bothering you. She was terribly glad that he seemed troubled. Someday very soon she would have to be honest about these dreams, but she didn't want to talk about herself yet. Now that she knew her father was alive, he must be connected to these dreams. But he didn't want her to look for him. His message was a warning. So why did she keep stepping into the skin of the woman who had tormented and captured him? That call I took in the office when I got home, it was Anna V telling me that Mama said to remind me I have the engagement party next week. I'd almost forgotten. Thessia had asked me to keep up pretenses until she got her law degree. And why in curses aren't they speaking to me? I was going to visit Papa tomorrow and tell him about the contract with Tehran. Now I don't even want to do it. I want to keep that contract for myself. There must be a way, she said. Even if you start small. The potions are still worth money, aren't they? And Tehran wouldn't work for anyone but you. No one can poach him. I think I'm actually getting disowned, he said, in some disbelief. Like a slow-motion car crash. Shizome went home to Papa and told him I was wandering around Lioness alone and I can't fight for shit. Hey, why don't you just use blinding spells on people who attack you, she asked. Wouldn't that make it easy to fight for shit? And weren't the temporary ones used a lot in the war? They must not cost that much. It's very cliché, he grimaced. No, I think you know the real answer to that. I don't follow. Papa hated it. Oh, so Papa said it was cliché. What does that even mean in a fight? Aren't swords cliché? Of course, you really don't want to be known for just one spell, then everyone will just plan around that if they go after you. But it would have worked better on Chisholm than trying to poke his eyes out manually. Ooh, too squicky. He sighed. Well, I'm going to ruin this engagement anyway. That's the final blow. They're going to name Ed as the heir. I can feel it now. I've been in denial. I mean, that might be true, she said. And you might be better off for it. I might be a poor man. He straightened up, shifting toward her. I might lose this apartment, the yacht. She laughed. I'm sorry, she said hastily, rubbing his shoulder. That was a terrible reaction. Your parents are treating you horribly, and it sounds like they were supportive to you up until now, and that must hurt. But the yacht, I really think you can manage without a yacht. He looked sour, hunching on the couch with his hands fidgeting, but then he had to crack the slightest smile himself. You haven't been on the yacht. You could get used to it. Good thing I never had the chance. I'm just saying, I don't care if you're a poor man. You saw where I live. I'll make a loaf of bread every day. I'll mend your clothes, and I'll make you chop the peppers and onions. It'll be fine. I don't know what I can do, he said. Losing all my suppliers, all my influence. I can't just go around hawking Tehran's potions. I need more. Mr. Thanneau seemed like he wanted to work with you, just not your father. I don't know. His sister married... Alfred paused. His sister married a Horan. Wait, what time is it? I don't know. You don't seem to have a clock in this room. Alfred sprung up and grabbed his watch from his room. Then he picked up the phone in the kitchen. I'll call Uncle Vika. He always knows the finer points of gossip. Right now? This late? Why? What are you thinking? Oh yeah, he's a late night guy. I suddenly had an idea. The Horan boys took over from their father recently, and they've fallen far since their glory days. That's for sure. They don't have much more to lose, but they do still have dock rights and channels with the law. That's what I'm missing if I leave Papa. I could offer an alliance to save their business. The Horans are a little soft, and they have no charisma. In fact, this is what Uncle will clarify for me, I think the two eldest boys are running it together because neither of them really wants to do it. You'd want to work for someone else? Ballora, you have to work through an established family. It's truly the only way. But it wouldn't be the first time there was a shake-up to wrest control of a family. Stefan's ancestors took charge because a Sanaroon and one of the family daughters plotted to murder the heir. Then they married and took charge of the family, and that was Stefan's great-grandparents. Alfred called his uncle and had a very jovial conversation with him. Uncle Vika must not share your parents' opinion, she said. Oh, he's the fun one, Alfred said. He's the little brother, and he never had any ambitions, just sailboats and gambling. And you know, for some years he thought he might get hit with the curse if Grandpapa died. I think he loves me just for taking that off his plate. Anyway, I can just taste a plan taking shape now. I was right. There are 8 children in the family, but only the 2 eldest are boys. Just imagine. The oldest is Jemin, who takes after his father. Vika says he's chubby, has a face even shape-shifting can't quite fix, and lacks any fire. Poor guy, Livonya said. He might not be as bad as all that. I'm not the one who said it, Alfred said. How does anyone have a decent heir? You have to be perfect in every way. Pretty much, but he is still running the business, and his father retired. Then we have number 2 brother, Gravin, a party boy, Vik says. Well, party man. They both should be a little older than I am. He got the good looks in the family, and he's supportive of Jem, but he's lazy. Known more for his parties than his business acumen. They're definitely flailing, but for now they still have a few loyal clients hanging on. Would they want to partner with you? Livonya said. People can be stubborn. If you couldn't salvage their business, would they drag your reputation down even farther? I don't know. I've met them, but I don't know them. But as plans go, it might be the best I've got. I'll see if I can set up a meeting. He paused. If you think it's a good idea, I did say we were in this together. I do think breaking off from your parents is a good idea. She figured Thad and Ellie were going to hate her once they learned the truth. They might even blame her for all of it. It was a great relief if Alfred worked for anyone else, no matter what fresh problems arose. And maybe you can still get Mr. Thanneau on board someday if you're working for his nephews. I have a feeling he's never met them, Alfred said. He married his Fenarlem concubine. A wife of one of the families would never speak to him again. In Atlantis, that is still instant estrangement. That's so sad. They seem so happy together alone out there. She toyed with the end of one of her braids. So can I go with you to talk to them? I can get a read on them telepathically. He grinned. If you do one thing for me. What is that? Can I unbraid this and run my fingers through it? She laughed. Oh, so you do have a hair fetish. Don't you have a hand fetish? Everyone should enjoy it. Oh, I'm sure I will. Chapter 35. The Horan Brothers. Thank you for taking this meeting. Alfred gave the Horans a small bow as the maid showed him into a formal room on the ground floor, with Livonia and George just behind him. A fireplace crackled along one wall, and the wood floor gave way to a thin rug. He could just tell by the soft echoes that there was quite a lot of furniture, rugs, and curtains going on here. Of course, Mr. Broviter, what a surprise. I'm Jem Horan, and my brother should be here soon. He said it like the presence of Gravin was perpetually in doubt. We'll, sit here by the window. I mean, well, I guess you don't, but yeah. Would you like a drink? Jem sounded sweaty already. In some ways this was good, because Jem had probably heard about the curse, since everyone had, but he was still treating Alfred very much like he was from a higher-ranking family. On the other hand, sweaty and stammering, he didn't even know the usual upper-class Atlantean move, pretend Alfred wasn't blind and thus force him to prove himself. Jem was acting like a commoner. It was obvious why this family was about to dissolve. I prefer coffee if you have it, but if not, I'll take whatever you're offering. And something for the lady if you don't mind. Of course. Bring us some coffee. Thank you, he told the maid. Jem would also surely know Alfred was engaged to Thessia, but sleeping with the assistant wouldn't raise any eyebrows. He and Livonia had worked this out beforehand. I don't mind playing the personal assistant, for now, she had said, in that strict voice she had when she was making it clear he would not be getting away with any overly Darmon behavior. They sat on a velvety sofa, old-fashioned and a little too soft. While this house did have that antique wood atmosphere of his father's office, there was no smell of leather or books. It felt a bit like an old lady's house. Alfred personally felt that seeing him in a room like this wasn't the best idea to begin with. An office would be more professional. You have such a comfortable home, he said, which was true. Inherited? Yes, my grandmother left it to us. Alfred nodded. You'll have to remind me your wife's name. Oh, Buttons. I mean, everyone calls her that. She really wanted to have you for dinner, but her cooking is so good we wouldn't get any business done. Jem and Buttons. He'd met a dog named Buttons once. He probably never comes home with blood on his hands. He wondered what Jem Santaroon was like, but of course he lurked in the background somewhere, just as George was now. Another door opened. Hey, we starting? Said Gravin, presumably. The smell of a cigarette came in with him. Alfred Broviter, huh? What do you want with us? Well, I'll get right to it because I'm sure you're busy. You might have heard rumors that my position is a little shaky. What, because of that curse? Gravin said. Yes, although I was named the heir for obvious reasons because my little brother is considerably younger than me, my parents have never quite trusted that I'm up to the job. Sounds like our family, Jem said with a little groan. Papa and Mama stepped down, at least they said they did, but they're always on our case. Ain't it the truth, Gravin agreed. So you must be here because you know we're desperate, Jem said, sounding a little defeated. Are you trying to buy out the last of our suppliers? I guess your family must want to get everyone talking about something else. No. Alfred didn't realize it was that bad. I don't want to work for my father anymore. Huh, really? What other choice do you have? I was wondering if I could work with you, Alfred said. Work with us? Mr. Broviter, we're a sinking ship, Jem said, pacing a little. The Camares have already snatched up a third of our people, and it's all my fault. I've never been the heir the family wanted. But you're not dead yet, Alfred said, and I could stop the bleeding. It must be pretty bad, Livonia said to him. Jem's melting down, and I think Gravin has already given up. Good, Alfred thought back to her. He expected a tough negotiation, and instead he was coming in as a life preserver. Livonia's mood felt a little more unsure about this. Well, she would see. I don't know, Jem said. It's quite bad. I mean, we've been slowly failing for years. I'm not sure what you could really do about it, and if I angered your father on top of it all, I don't want to put Buttons in danger. Do you want me to buy you out? Alfred asked. Maybe he had the plan all wrong. Jem just didn't want to be a boss at all. There was no way you could survive if you were terrified of pissing off someone else. Hell, Jem. Let's listen to what he has to say first, Gravin said. What if we didn't have to go down as such losers after all? Like you've ever really cared, Jem muttered. You're the one who's always off having a good time. But I don't mind a good fight. It's dealing with all these nutty suppliers and buyers I can't stand. That's the part I'm best at, Alfred said. I can bring you a few suppliers right off, and that won't be the end of it. You just have to be open to some unconventional clients. What do you mean unconventional? Gravin asked. What sorcerer isn't unconventional? No one wants to work with blind sorcerers, Alfred said. But I do. Finarlem, Miralem, even female magic users are still overlooked. And then you have the ones that the other families would love to work with, but they don't want to be associated with us. You know what kind of reputation we all have. Greedy, image-obsessed, in bed with the colonites, but purely for power. I think we could lean into this new energy in the city and build up an entirely different clientele. But how would we be any better, Jem said. Aren't we just as greedy as soon as we try to get them working for us? Why would they trust you? Because I love magic, Alfred said as the maid handed him a cup of coffee. I know the history of it, the minutiae. I have George clip all the interviews with renowned sorcerers. If they come from a long line of sorcerers, I know what their fathers and grandfathers did. I want all their spells, even the weird ones. In this day and age, when magic is less glamorous than it once was, this can work wonders. Everyone likes to feel like their life's work is still relevant. That's what I offer them. The money sweetens the deal. You two are struggling? That's perfect. We want to seem like outsiders. We'll go after people who would not work for the families, but we convince them that we're barely the families. We're outsiders, only you still have the infrastructure in place, yes? We do, Gravin said. We're not dead yet. I mean, makes sense to me. I could play an outsider a lot better than I can play Mr. fucking suit and tie. What is he wearing? Alfred tried to send the thought to Livonia. A purple ruffled shirt and very tight striped pants. Very, very tight. Yikes. Is Jem all right? He's in a black suit, unbuttoned, sort of ill-fitting. Between bad tailoring or sartorial eccentricity, it was hard to say which was worse. The family won't like it, Jem said, but it hardly seems to matter. Your plan makes sense to me, but it's almost too good to be true, I say. We're still in charge, Gravin said. If you join our operation, you still work for us. We're not going to be bravado family peons. This would be a partnership, Alfred said. I need you. It sounds like you need me too. No one is going to be anyone's peon. We can work up a contract we'll both agree on. You like to party, Bravador? Gravin asked. Well, Alfred scrambled to come up with a good answer when the real answer was no, but Livonia must have sensed something because she said, Of course! You should see this guy dance with a couple of beers in him. Gravin laughed. All right, I'm in. How about it, brother? Like you said, it's a sinking ship. If we can work out the finer points, yes, I like the idea. Let's see what we can do together, Bravador. You told them I would drink beers and dance. Livonia laughed. That's how you win Gravin over. I could feel it. But I was also thinking, some parties might do us good. If we're going to get these offbeat clients you're talking about, don't we need to be a part of the scene? And it could be fun. Everyone's going to be stupid, drunk, and stoned. She has a point, though, George said, backing out of the driveway. If you just get a little drunk and a little stoned, you can probably make some good contacts at those parties. I was just thinking, sometimes you're a little too formal, Livonia said. Like you don't hang out with anyone outside of work. Ouch. Well, I told you to let me take the lead conversationally, he grumbled. And I did, she said impishly. You did pretty much all the talking. I think it'll be fun, George said. George, you traitor, you hate parties 10 times more than I do. Cherry Doll was at one of that guy's parties one time, George said. And thus it was 2 against 1, and Alfred had to concede. Chapter 36. The Kiss That Lingered. Alfie. His mother approached, already sounding on the verge of a breakdown. It is good to see you. Is it? You sound like the sight of me makes you cry, Alfred said. It's going to take me some time to get over this, she said. I still don't understand why you would do this to me. Your grandfather wanted to punish you. He wanted this family to suffer. He was such a bitter old man, he would be chuckling at all of this chaos. Tell his ghost to get the fuck out of your head, Alfred snapped. Oh, Alfred, you wore the jacket I got for you, Thessia said from the doorway with perfect poise, no hint of bitterness at all. Thessia was always trying to get him to break out of his black suit, so he wore the striped number today as a show of good faith. She strolled over, smoothed his hair, and slipped an arm in his. "It's so good to see you. I wanted to get your opinion on cakes. Do you have a preference? As much as I like chocolate, it feels a little common for a wedding. On the other hand, do you think cherry with some sort of liqueur is too bold?" His mother shut up, and this reminded him once again that Thessia made a perfect partner for this particular crazy world. Even though she knew Alfred was breaking her heart, she defended him with impeccable strategy. Life would have been so much simpler if he'd never met Livonia, if the curse was never a question and he'd never known what it felt like to meet someone who set him on fire. But he didn't need simplicity. "Not too bold at all," he said. "Sounds like a romantic cake." "I thought so too." Now she did sound the tiniest bit stiff. This was agony. He was about ready to blow up at his mother, but Thessia was such a good sport. He had asked Jem and Gravin to keep their arrangement on the down low until he secured them a few more clients, and they didn't seem eager to discuss it with their family either, so he just had to keep up the facade a little longer. "Alfred," his father said, coming in the room at a delay. Perhaps he was waiting outside to see how badly the meeting went between Alfred and his mother. "I want to speak to you for a moment before guests start to arrive." "I'll see you in a bit," Thessia said, overly chipper now. The atmosphere could not be more tense, as if the disastrous breakfast had only happened an hour ago. Alfred followed his father, who led them all the way back out to the swimming pool. The smell of chlorine mingled with the river, and the groundskeeper was dragging something by them. "Alfie, welcome back," he said. "Are you getting the Ancestors' Day decorations up?" Alfred asked, and his father grabbed his arm and probably shot Dervin a look because the man just mumbled something and hurried off. "I know what you've been up to," Papa said. "Going to see some blind nobody sorcerer, that's your plan?" "I had an inkling you did, seeing as you sent someone to beat me up. I hope that nobody sorcerer didn't burn him too badly. I heard him scream." "I'm glad you're having fun running around. I had a long, difficult talk with Stefan about you this week. Years ago, when we first set up this engagement, we understood that there was no guarantee the curse could ever be broken, and that there was a chance you might not be qualified to be the heir. I never imagined that you would choose it for yourself without even discussing it with your mother and me." His father paused. "I want to throw you in the fucking pool and hold you there until you don't come up." Alfred remained largely indifferent to this outburst. Papa's temper was a little more dramatic than his own. "I guess, if you really want to try it, that's one way to solve the line of succession." At the time, Stefan suggested an alternate plan, marrying Victoria and Rashalan. And now? I hate to say it, but I'm seriously considering it, even though it's the last thing I want. "What? What about Ed?" "Ed doesn't have the stuff. He's only 10. Even with kids. You know if they have what it takes. The only thing I can imagine that would be even worse than Rashalan running my empire is seeing it crumble to dust like the Horans or the Terrans." "But I do have the stuff," Alfred said softly, "and yet you don't trust me." "I watched my father." "I'm not your father. How many times do I have to say that?" "I know how the world is." "The world is changing." "The world never changes that fast, no matter how much you kids wish it would. You can't fight the forces against you. You do have the stuff. That's why it kills me that you did this. I know you think we're being unfair. If you were in our position, you'd understand. It was painful for your mother trying to bring you up. Remember how she tried to get you to be a pianist? She just thought you wouldn't get hurt doing something like that. She worked so hard to teach you how to cover up your blindness, and that wasn't for our sake, it was for yours." "I know that's what you thought," Alfred said, "but you were never able to separate me from Grandpapa, or yourself for that matter. I wasn't going to run this business like you. It's true, I can't, but I actually know that. I've spent my life thinking up workarounds, realizing what I am good at and how to use it, and I would have kept the Bravender name as powerful as ever, and in our hands. But if you want to hand it over to Rashalan Woad, fine, do it. I don't want to do this. But I need you to prove." "No! I've been proving myself for years already." Alfred could hear his father shift his pose slightly. He really hadn't expected Alfred to call his bluff. "Now I get it. He didn't want me to go find clients. He wanted me to grovel. He wanted an apology. Anyway, Vicky has the stuff, doesn't she?" Alfred asked, twisting the knife a little. "She's a woman. But aside from that, You know she doesn't, Papa said curtly. Vicky was too hungry, too self-serving. Somewhere along the way she had grown deeply bitter that she was female and a second child and could never be the heir. Alfred could still remember the little sister who squealed with excitement when he and George let her play with them. Then she went to school, fell in with some other kids with a lot of money but no clear direction. All she seemed to want anymore was some power of her own. Alfred said. Well, hopefully her and Rash can learn. Alfie, I'm not messing around. Papa got closer to him. Neither am I. You think you can figure this out on your own? Maybe I'll get a law degree. Thessia can tutor me. Alfred was being a bit glib now, just to get under Papa's skin. Your mother and I are worried. You know, we've tried our best to give you a good life, good opportunities. If you go off on your own, the rest of the world won't be so kind. Kind, Alfred snapped. Is that what you think I'm looking for? I don't need the world to be kind. I already know it isn't. I'm not naive except for one thing. I really thought you believed in me and trusted me. Now I see that you have no faith in me at all. You're not being very fair. I gave you plenty of freedom and real control over aspects of the business. But I know there are limits, and didn't your fight with Shizam show you anything? You should have been able to win that if you'd only taken the damn cure. I'm so glad I didn't, Alfred said viciously. I would never have known how it feels to be with people who truly respect me. Who are you talking about? That girl? Papa's voice was soft, but he took a step closer. Alfred wondered if he really was going to try to throw him in the pool. He edged one foot ever so slightly wider to prepare for a tackle just in case. That girl? Yes, for one. Are you cheating on Thessia? This is a business marriage, but I've been entirely honest with Thessia. She never stopped talking to me. You're sleeping with that Miralem. My relationships are not like that, and she's not like that. Stefan's telepath wants to meet with her. Is she the one who found her? Alfred didn't expect that. Why would she want to meet? Not my business, but let's arrange a meeting. No. No? Is it your place to speak for her? Anyway, what's the harm? Alfred's sense of danger was on high alert. Livonia said the woman who killed her parents was still looking for her. I don't want Livonia having anything to do with either of you. Alfie. Papa softened now, shifting his tactics. Come on now, look at us. A father and son shouldn't be fighting over this. Your mother and I shouldn't have stopped speaking to you all these weeks. We were just devastated. It's just that, truly, son, what are you going to do if you don't follow in my footsteps? I want to give this to you. Let's regroup and talk it over. Figure out what your strengths are. Alfred had no intention of doing this now, but if he resisted too strongly, Papa might end up teasing out the alliance with the Horans. I already know what my strengths are, so why don't we sit down later and discuss why your weaknesses are holding me back from getting suppliers? His father gave his shoulder a little punch, which Alfred jerked back from because he was still expecting to be thrown into the pool. All right, Alfie, relax, Papa said. We'll talk about it this week, you and me. The back doors opened and two other people walked out to the pool area. Hard to believe we're already at the official engagement party, Stefan said, walking up to them. Congratulations, boy. Alfred turned to him with his fake smile, already working overtime. Thank you, Stefan. It's certainly been a long wait, but Thessia deserves the congratulations for nearly achieving a law degree. He didn't trust Papa, and it was a good thing he didn't have to, but he hated Stefan calling him boy even more. And who was this? A woman with a measured walk and clothes that dragged on the floor. Alfred felt a vague tingle in his temples, a telepath giving him a quick read, sending his own defenses up. He could sense that her energy felt aged and icy. Stefan's telepath, a Halnari woman. She was the one who located Livonia after all these years then. Papa said Livonia's parents were killed by a telepath employed by Grandpapa and Stefan's father. He hadn't considered that she might be the same woman, but he suspected she was old enough to fit the profile. Now it seemed pretty obvious that she'd been looking for Livonia all along. She probably was collecting a payment from his father first, and then she figured after Livonia lifted the curse they would forget all about her. It was probably messing up her plans that Alfred had kept her close. What my little girl wants, my little girl gets, Stefan said. And let me introduce you to Urette and Dore. I've been working with her recently, and she is actually the one who found the Orleston girl. Alfred gave her the smallest bow. You must be very skilled. I've spent a lifetime developing such skills, she replied. Her voice was flat and also betrayed some age with its slight roughness. Could it really be her? I rarely meet a true Halnari, he said, with all of his admiration for old magic. That wasn't too hard to fake. The traditions are changing, yes. The younger people don't find the same things beautiful anymore. It's much easier for them. The women are so lively now. You and Thessia make a lovely couple. When I was a girl, we were extremely restricted. She sounded the tiniest bit wistful. Frustrating, Alfred said. But there is power in it, she said. Power in people finding you strange. She reached out a hand to brush his arm, and his skin tingled. You're an interesting young man. I didn't expect that. Was she enchanting him a little? She was sending up all his alarm bells, with good reason if she was who he guessed her to be. I agree with you there. It's not always a disadvantage to make people a tad uncomfortable, he said, as much to Papa as anyone. Well, we should go inside. You need to be at Thessia's side as the guests arrive, eh? Papa said. Of course. Alfred went right in ahead of him, relieved to have an excuse to exit that situation, but the relief didn't last. Congratulations, Vicky spat as he walked back into the house, cornering him in the hall between the veranda and the music room. Don't worry, Vicky. I still think your moment might come, Alfred said. I hear congratulations might be in order for you and Rashalan. You could relax on the bad girl thing for one afternoon. Gee, Alfie, do you think a little girl like me could possibly have the stuff? She said, in a whispering baby voice. Alfred was glad George hadn't come along for this. He would probably get a boner over that. Papa said that, not me, but spies aren't supposed to tell everyone they spied 5 minutes later. You agreed with him. You men all think you're in some special club anyway. Clearly I'm not in the club. Not anymore, if I ever was. At least he gave you a shot, and you didn't have to marry anyone to get it. Think about how that feels to me. He thinks blind people are useless, and he still thinks you're more useful than me. So we should have teamed up against him years ago, Vic. That whole conversation proves why I shouldn't, she said. He's twisting himself in knots to give you a chance. He's been talking like Rashalan is going to take over our business. I'm just going to be the mother of the grandson who will take over as soon as he's old enough to get Rash out of the way. Papa fucking adores you, even though you're such a square. I'm responsible. That's why he doesn't think you have the stuff. It's because I have a uterus, Alfred. If I was a man, he would love everything I do, because I will fucking destroy anyone who gets in my way. And you and George are more interested in your record collection. That's George, not me. Come on, I remember your insufferable jazz phase. Everyone else was listening to rock and roll, but you're over there at 11 p.m. every night jerking off to that smug lady DJ with the lounge hour. How the fuck does she know? Wait, it's Vicky. She means it metaphorically. Oh, because Branter Dickey and the Cobtown boys were so much cooler. Branter Dickey went to jail for murder. He would have eaten your jazz people for supper. Alfred threw up a hand. I don't know. I don't know what Papa really thinks of me anymore. And I don't hate you like you hate me. By all means, see if you can seize control from Rashalan. I'll be proud of you if you do. I do hate you, was her response. Normally, Thessia probably would have rushed in to defend him. She did hate Victoria. But Thessia was studiously avoiding him, it seemed, and he couldn't blame her at all. It wasn't her job to help him out. Vicky would probably stop hating him when she found out what he had planned. He had the feeling Urette was watching him as he went into the old ballroom, which was more often used for parties now, because balls just weren't in fashion these days. Mama always had the food against the interior wall, and Papa had installed a bar by the tall windows. But that could just be paranoia. It was like he could feel her everywhere. Powerful telepaths could play tricks with your mind all too easily. It really was understandable why his Darmon ancestors feared them so much. Alfred, Thessia said from across the room, a curt summons. Mama wants us to greet people, and they're starting to arrive. I'm here. Okay, good. Smile. The Camares are here. Alfred smoothly greeted Nicoro and his wife, asking politely after his sons, praying that they hadn't gotten wind of the Horan deal. But no one had, which meant the Horan boys could keep their mouths shut tight. Good. He smiled for Rashalan and Therian, Thessia's brothers, who had to harangue him about the curse. He didn't dare lose his shit over that, because it was going to go on for years. He just had to keep up that sanguine, there's another word that I never say aloud, and confident quip in response. He kept it up for the Bouffat branch of the family, the grandchildren of Drafe and Broviter's wife's brother. No one ever really mentioned Grandmother Bouffat, except that she was said to have been very, very proud of her beautiful hair. When she found out Drayfin was sleeping around, she killed herself and left him a vengeful suicide note before he was even struck with the curse. So both of his father's parents had killed themselves. They sounded like a charming couple. The Bouffat cousins were all alcoholics. Then there was Aunt Penza, Papa's sister, who thought that her children should have everything. Victoria was following in her footsteps, it seemed. Alfred's mother said that Penzara had copied her hairstyle and named her eldest son Edmund right after Edward was born. Penza was always cloyingly nice to Alfred's family. No one was fooled, nor was anyone meant to be. Other merchant families, a few of their best and closest suppliers and clients, and some of Thessia's aunts and cousins filed in, along with the city commissioner and the president of the merchant guilds. At least there was Uncle Vika, chatting cheerfully about fishing and asking Alfred to come with him sometime. Vika was always trying to get Alfred out fishing, and Alfred always meant to go, later, when he had free time. Thessia barely said a word to him through it all, though he had no doubt her smile was as perfect as her cheerful voice. She knew how to fake it with the best of them. Didn't they both? Somehow they made it through without any major incidents. Alfred yearned to be home with Livonya and George, my people. And then there was Urette, who formally congratulated him near the end of the line. "You're both so young," she said, "so young to be married. Of course I know you are not young at all, not by your reckoning. You should enjoy it. It is such a gift to be young and have your chance to make the world your own. Congratulations." She gave him a tiny, fluttering kiss on the cheek, too quickly for him to react, but the touch of her lips lingered there like a mark. He could feel it there, and a part of him wanted to wash it away. Another part of him wanted to brush it with his own fingers. There's something very wrong with that woman. I don't actually have a lot of time for background on this one because my dinner just came out of the oven, so I should probably go eat it, but while it's cooling, briefly, this was a rather consequential chunk of the story. Tehran first appears in Wanted Brooding Man, Tragic Past, which actually came out after this book, but I had written most of it at the time I wrote the Tehran scene, but I didn't want to reveal who he had married, so I had her out of town. And if Tehran seems a little tiny bit mean to his poor wife when he says he didn't marry a looker, I feel a little bad because she was very self-conscious about her appearance in the Wanted Brooding Man, and he does actually get to see her through telepathically getting a vision of her through Sorla, who's telepathic. So he does know very well what his wife looks like and finds her quite cute and attractive, actually. But Tehran is really definitely the kind of guy who just, the more he likes you, the more he hassles you. And he's also very hard on himself in that way. He's just one of those people who's always kind of disparaging and teasing to people that he likes. And, if you're Tehran's friend, you just kind of put up with that. It was very fun to write him, though, years later, with his overwhelming triplet girls and his messy house, and he's having a good time. And I hate to bring up AI again. But I've been talking about AI with some other writers lately, and the idea of that people are often using AI to write description particularly has come up a lot, which I think is true. A lot of people hate writing description. I was thinking as I was reading this how a lot of this story gets told through Alfred's point of view, which means I have to do all the descriptions without any visuals, or if there are any visuals, they're only through the words of the characters around him. And I don't want too much of the story being George or Livonia describing things to Alfred. So I only pepper that in just in little bits. I really try to convey the atmosphere of a place without describing anything visually. And there are, as I mentioned before, there are places that we go in this book that you never, as the reader, get to see because Alfred is the only point of view. And it's so fun. It's such a fun challenge for me to try to figure out how to describe a place without leaning on that. Because there is, you realize how much you can say and how you can convey all these little details about a place just through the other senses. And it makes me appreciate the art of description so much. And it makes me a little sad that there are is this tendency to think of description as like the pain in the butt part that you wish you didn't have to do. Because I do think description can be really difficult, and I often do a lot of it in like its own editing pass, but I also think it's like often the special sauce that really elevates a book from being like okay to good and good to great. Like when the descriptions have a little extra something, I think that it's magical. It's not always easy. I mean, sometimes it's so difficult to convey the things that I'm imagining, the kind of place that I think, the place that I am in as the character, trying to figure out what are like the words that's going to translate that feeling. I don't always feel like I do a good job of it, but I really enjoy the challenge. This is also the first appearance of the Horan brothers, Jem and Gravin. This is the first time they've been in a story. I didn't originally plan for Alfred to like strike out on his own and team up with other people. So they are characters that just kind of waltzed into the story on accident. And it's all, you never know how that's going to go. Sometimes the characters don't work out when you think like, oh, I need these characters. Other times they just work out really well. And Jem is a case of a character that I didn't plan, but as soon as he showed up, I was just like, oh, I totally see this guy. I totally imagine Jem and Buttons and their kids. I just so see them as like just this nice, like Midwestern couple. Like, they're so cute. And you'll get to know Jem a lot better in the next book. But, like, I love him. I love him and Buttons both, really. I won't say too much about them, but they fit into the story really well. Gravin, I haven't entirely gotten a handle on him yet, but he does work out well just in being, like, a plot device kind of character. He's very much a, like, late 60s, early 70s party guy. And, you know, some characters don't really need to be any more than that. But you never know. Gravin could kind of end up shining at some later date. Sometimes characters don't always immediately show you the depths of themselves. So I don't know. I don't know where Gravin's going. It's weird going back and reading this when I'm almost done writing the Order of the Arcane Hand, because there's so much that I could do with the concept of like all the things Alfred's talking about or the other characters talk about, as far as like buyers can be a pain in the butt, or like things that could be dangerous, things that could agitate other families, the Kamares poaching, the Horan's clients. There's so many moving pieces to this business they're in. And I feel like, oh my gosh, I could have gone back and added in like another conflict here and another complication here, but that'll be something, maybe book 3, I can work in some of those things. But also you don't want to get too lost in like little subplots either. And we get to meet Urette. And if you're hearing the story for the first time, Urette's an interesting character. You'll get to know more about her soon. My food is probably cool now, so I'm going to go eat. As always, thank you so much for watching/listening. And it takes me a long time to do these. They don't make a lot of money because they're obviously not big algorithm favorite videos, but if you did like the video, the best thing that you can do is either buy a copy of the book or give the book a review, especially on Amazon, but also Goodreads, any of the other retailers, or recommend the book in a fantasy group somewhere on the internet or tell a friend about it. Word of mouth is the best advertising a book can have. So if you're enjoying it and you like to support my writing, I would appreciate that tremendously. And I'll see you with the final installment soon. Ooh, there's a stink bug flying around my room. And also, if you're enjoying these and you haven't listened to my read aloud of Doll Girl Meets Dead Guy yet, I'll also link to that playlist as well. See you next time, and bye!